The Smashing Machine is directed by Benny Safdie and it stars Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt. It feels kind of weird referring to The Rock as Dwayne Johnson, but now that he's taken such a serious role and done a really good job at it, I feel like we have to refer to him as actor Dwayne Johnson. Anyway, this story follows UFC fighter Mark Kerr, who's an OG heavyweight wrestler from back in the day, and it tracks his life and struggles between the years of 1997 and 2000. This movie is also adapted from a documentary by the same name, and one of the things that really stood out to me right from the beginning was the use of 16mm film and how much that made the movie feel super grounded in reality, and it almost just felt like a documentary that I was watching rather than a very cinematic movie. And I think one of the biggest strengths to this movie is the amount of tools that it uses at its disposal to make it feel as realistic and grounded in reality as possible. Like I've already mentioned, the use of 16mm film having this super grainy and aesthetic look to it, almost like an old documentary like it's based on. But also, there's a lot of sound effects that they use in the fight scenes that have this really kind of realistic bone-on-bone thud and crunch to them. And every time there would be a punch or a hit like that, and you would hear that like really visceral thud, like it is bone-on-bone, you'd almost feel the punch yourself, like you'd put yourself in their position, and it felt so real. It was like such a cool effect that they used, and I really appreciated that. But I think it's really no surprise that this movie has such an existential and anxiety-inducing drive to it, because that's just what Benny Safdie is known for, especially from his previous movies like Good Time and Uncut Gems. But the real surprise here is Dwayne Johnson's performance. It's a good performance. It's a really good performance, in fact. And I don't want to take anything away from that, but I do want to mention some of the things that they did in the movie, and especially to The Rock. Yes, The Rock, to help him disappear into this role. And no, it's not just the addition of the hair, because yes, he has a very recognizable egg-shaped bald head, but I think the prosthetics that they did to his face, and especially around his jaw, really gave him this kind of uncanny look that looked obviously a lot more similar to the real life Mark Kerr, but also didn't take so much away that The Rock couldn't really express the sorts of facial expressions that he needed to in a lot of the really emotional scenes. But aside from those physical transformations that helped disappear The Rock from this role, and the sorts of things that actor Dwayne Johnson did so well and delivered here that elevated his performance, were his accent and his dialect and the way he spoke, obviously, but also his emotional range. Because this is such a heavy movie, and a lot of what it explores is the cycle of violence and drug addiction, but also that polar opposite of feeling the high of being on top of the world and winning these fights and performing in front of these massive crowds. Dwayne Johnson really had to take it from a level of being on top of the world to being at the absolute rock bottom that you could possibly be. No pun intended, but seriously, he goes from being admired and inspiring to other people to being a person that is slumped on the couch and in another state of mind because he is so overtaken by this addiction to opiates, which it explores, and the damaging effects that that has not just on him as a person, but also on his partner, Dawn, who's played by Emily Blunt, who I'll also get to later on. But the sorts of transformations that he has with his emotions and the sorts of almost bipolar ups and downs that he goes through is so well performed by him, and I really have to give Dwayne Johnson so many props for that. And then the chemistry that he has with Emily Blunt's character Dawn, who's his partner in the movie and in real life for a certain period of time. I mean, do I really have to say much? It's fucking Emily Blunt. She's one of the greatest actresses of our time at the moment, and I think she performs such a killer performance here, especially with playing such a crazy bitch. From her accent to her mannerisms to the single streaked tear that comes out of her eye when she's taking a photo of Mark Kerr with a fighter he had a previous bout with. But I also think that Emily Blunt is probably one of the better scene partners that The Rock or Dwayne Johnson or whatever could have asked for this movie, because they play so well off each other and they have such a great chemistry that feels so real in this movie, that they just are such a perfect couple for this performance and for these roles, and I think it was such great casting by Benny Safdie. This story truly is as real as it gets, and this production is as real as it gets too, and The Smashing Machine is amazing. It'd be so funny if The Rock won an Oscar off this for Best Performance from a male actor, because he's always been seen as the meme WWE superstar actor, as comparison to John Cena or Dave Bautista, who have been taken more serious roles and have been taken more seriously by general audiences and more film buffs. But if The Rock won an Oscar off this, he'd just go straight to the top of the rankings.